This is my wonderful friend, Alicia Dubois. We've been very close friends for a long time. She's one day older than me.
The
And,
elder.
and much, much smarter. Alicia, it's so good to have you here at the First Nation Major Products Coalition. I've known your history, and I know how passionate you are about the Indigenous community and the importance of what you do now as the Chief Investment Officer for Boan. I mean, you are the connective tissue between a lot of the financial resources and the opportunity to grow our communities. Tell me about your experience to date, and we'll get into the future. But let's start with that.
It has been a real honor to get to have the roles that I've held. I practiced law first, and it was really during that period of time that I realized what we needed to focus on was growing prosperity for Indigenous communities and peoples and a sense of autonomy and empowerment and self control over their circumstances in order for our entire nation to function better. And so, it started with the bank, and I was so proud to work with that particular team at CIBC and to build that mandate out for them. And that was sort of the beginning point. And since then, I've been able to participate in very innovative solutions as the CEO at the AIOC, and now moving into social impact, which is a really interesting space because a lot of people don't understand social impact investing as a source of capital. It sort of feels like the Wizard of Oz for lots of people. And I really enjoy the opportunity to bring Indigenous people into the fold and to introduce them to solutions that may fit for them. And of course, that's always, if it meshes with them, then that's fabulous. But it's an opportunity for us to focus on impact in a different way. It's very social focused, but it can also be about in place regional economic development. So you can work with fund managers to drive economic prosperity in very underserved regions and with underserved communities, such as Indigenous communities. So for me, this is just a natural fit, and I'm so honored to get to do it.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody better in that role to, the Wizard of Oz world to demystify
Yes.
and help bridge those relationships. And a lot of people don't understand. There's the on the ledger. On your balance sheet, you've got your assets and you've got your liabilities. And unfortunately, you and I know in our communities we still have a lot of liabilities that we're trying to address. But when you social impact invest, you're not only in value on the positive side of the income statement, but you're also addressing the liability part by increasing the capacity of our communities. Talk to us about what you're seeing when you actually invest in our communities.
Yeah. Well, when you invest in communities, you see a proliferation of entrepreneurs in various sectors. And that diversification and that facilitation of individuals responding to a need in their region allows for that in place growth. And it means that people don't feel like they need to move away from their communities in order to grow and advance and provide for their families and reimagine their future, which is really important to Indigenous people because we're so connected to the land. And so, that's one component. There are many components to social impact investing that are, phenomenal, but that's one that for me really resonates when I think about all of the different conversations I've had with Indigenous communities across the country.
Absolutely. I mean, there's 475 natural resource projects in the books, 550-ish billion dollars worth of capital needed, and building that human capital, and we're here at the First Nation Major Products Coalition conference, that becomes incredibly important as we build this together, and it takes relationships. And just recently, the federal government made this amazing announcement about a federal loan guarantee program. Tell me your thoughts about it, and do you see intersections with what you do in that commitment by the government?
Well, of course, because especially if say I'm working with a fund manager, so Boan is what we refer to as a wholesaler for the social finance fund. That means that we have dollars to invest, in intermediary fund managers. So these are on-the-ground fund managers that have very specific mandates to drive social equity, gender equity, regional in-place economic development, and the like. There's a few metrics that we look at specifically at BOAN. But the interesting thing is that as the $5 billion loan guarantee starts to come into play, with those big projects come incredible entrepreneurial procurement-based opportunities. And so, having an Indigenous entity form and become a fund manager and then become an investor in those entrepreneurs that are looking to advance the regional economic development. I mean, it's crucial. It's
And
phenomenal.
you're the co-chair of the Canadian Council for
I
Aboriginal
am,
Business,
proudly.
and you're my old boss as well, and you've got an exceptional leader at the helm now, Tabitha. And the procurement space is so incredibly important.
Yes.
CCAB is doing an incredible job
Yes.
leading that. Can you tell us more about kind of like it's great to be at BOAN, but it's also really important to be in community, and that's what you do at CCAB. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we've got hundreds of communities, and all of them are very unique, and they're responding to opportunities that are in their region. They're creating opportunities for their region. We've seen lots of communities and Indigenous entrepreneurs be real drivers. I mean, I think about, Blue Shays. And what that does is transform not just like the current circumstances, but the future circumstances. Because once you have those types of conversations, like the entrepreneurial conversation happening around the kitchen table, like that's where we start to see generational journeys shift and change. And it moves beyond hope. Hope is very important, but it becomes tangible.
Yes.
And there's a capacity building in communities when we start to see that type of injection of capital that really allows the community to flourish.
Absolutely. And so let's say in 10 years from now, you and I are hanging out and we're talking about the good old days. What are we looking at in 10 years?
Well, one, I won't be done in 10 years.
Well,
I
we're going to
just
take a little
can't
break.
imagine. I
No,
know,
we'll
it's
take a
true,
little break.
it's true. Yeah,
Well, it'll feel different, but like I just can't imagine doing different work, and I can't imagine not doing this work. Think about the shift that we've already seen in our professional careers.
Yes.
I mean, as you know, my dad passed away when I was in my 20s, and I've said so many times, he would have given a limb to be part of the conversations that I'm getting to be part of now. And I just can see that exponentially improving. And that for me is, wow, reason for being.
Alicia, it's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for everything you do.
thank you.
Great.
I love you.
Love you too.